Hello, USC fans. Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino are back on campus after USC's 17th practice of fall camp. We're with, of course, USCFootball.com, and now it's time for instant analysis from what we just saw. Chris, we're getting close to game week. It's mock game week this week for the Trojans, and we're getting closer. We know we are because the team was back on the practice field, not on Dado Field today.
Right. I feel like they were kicked off because the Spirit of Troy, the USC marching band, took over the baseball field, and that was their practice facility for the day. So USC back on Howard Jones Field. So it actually kind of feels like a normal fall camp, and obviously close to football season, because during the season we're going to be on Howard Jones a lot this fall.
It's also move-in day, so all the new freshmen, will that be the class of 2027 or 6?
Don't make me do that.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Someone in the comments can let us know. But freshmen moved in today, so that was cool to see. But let's get to football. So we saw some tackling drills from the defense from the media viewing portion that we were able to watch. And what I thought was interesting today, Chris, it was a sequence of drills, and the position groups, they all rotated around. It wasn't like one position group was doing one thing and another was doing something else. They all went through stations doing the same drills. It was tackling drills. What'd you take away?
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of that throughout the last couple weeks of practice as they've gotten more into tackling. And we do have to mention, it was a shells practice, so they're not full pads, so they're not fully tackling, but they're working on their form, working on getting under the pads and taking them down teammates into padded areas. So they're working on a bunch of different things, tackling, pulling what are those little like long pads and the tackling the donuts. So they're doing a bunch of different things. And yeah, it's nice to like get rotating, because sometimes you're listening to the same person over and over and over. It's nice to switch it up and hear somebody different. That's why we switch it up on instant analysis all the time. You want to hear somebody different sometimes. So, and that goes for the sense of practice as well, when you're getting different coaching and different yelling in your ear from a different coach, from Sean Nua as to Brian Odom or Alex Grinch. So yeah, nice to give a little variety and switch up practice a little bit.
And it was just tackling drills, nothing major, but Mason Cobb continues to stand out to me. Every time he comes out to practice, he treats it as a business trip, I feel like. He takes that first rep every time with the linebackers. Today, it was Tackett Curtis who he tackled first. I think the two of those guys are developing a nice chemistry. Day in and day out, whenever I watch the defense practice, Mason Cobb jumps out to me. I think we can pencil him in as a day one starter. You think that's true?
Yeah, I would say he's been the most consistent, kind of worked his way into the first team by middle of spring camp, and then he's been with the first team for the most of that time. So yeah, I think it's safe to say Mason Cobb will be out there with the first team defense come week 0 for that San Jose State game. And one other drill that I thought was interesting is they were using this sort of wooden plank, and they would hold it up kind of like your Karate Kid breaking a board, and then the defender would kind of strike it and shut off the block, and then kind of tackle one of their teammates into the to the pad. So I don't know, I thought it was interesting. It was a nice touch that the wooden plank actually had USC kind of engraved into it, so it wasn't just some random wooden plank they got at Home Depot. They actually took the time to put that in there. But yeah, that's something we haven't really seen before.
I thought that was interesting too. Looking at some of the scout team stuff we got to see today, Chris, who stood out to you in terms of guys playing on the scout team? Maybe someone could have gone either way, just scout team observations.
Right. I am a big fan of scout team, offense and defense, because we can just get a feel of who's not ready to be practicing for a game, and who's more ready to kind of develop on that scout team. So I heard scout team, somebody yelled out for scout team, so I immediately beelined over there. So yeah, only got to see a little bit of the defense, but the 3 kind of scholarship players I saw were defensive lineman Kobe Pepe, linebacker Garrison Madden, and then defensive lineman Devin Tompkins, who, Devin Tompkins is someone we've kind of talked about being maybe a guy who can break through. He's 6'6", a raw player who was a basketball player out of high school, was a rush end, moved to defensive line. Doesn't look like he's going to start out this year, working with the team in terms of getting ready for games. He's going to be more of a scout defender. So that is a little bit unfortunate, because you love to see a guy that size and frame get into games to get some development. So hopefully he develops more on that scout team defense. He does, like I said, he is a raw player. Didn't really play high school football at all basketball. So he still needs more time, but I'm hoping that by the end of the year you'll be able to see a little bit more number 37 out there in some late fourth quarters blowouts.
After practice, we heard from offensive line coach Josh Henson, running backs coach Kiel McDonald, a few offensive linemen, Dorian Singer, a receiver, Kyron Hudson, a receiver. Let's get into what we learned from those interviews. So I think the biggest takeaway today, and it's something we've touched on in instant analysis in the past, Chris, is that right tackle spot it's up for grabs. And we heard Coach Henson confirm that today. He was asked, do you have a starter for right tackle? It's between Michael Tarquin and Mason Murphy, and he said no. Those guys are still battling. It really looks to me like Mason Murphy's making a really good push, and if it is Michael Tarquin to start the year, I don't think that's going to be set in stone. Expect Mason Murphy to continue to push all season long.
Feels kind of similar to last season when they had Cortland Ford and Bobby Haskins. They would kind of use them as a rotation. You know, Bobby was coming back from that injury, kind of missed all camp. But this feels like a true kind of competition to see where it kind of ends up. I figure we're going to see rotation, like you said, between those two. And, hey, this is the new staff. You know, they're saying even if you're a transfer, even if we brought you in out of the portal from Florida or wherever, you're still going to have to earn your starting spot. So Mason Murphy, to see him push, you know, that's a really great sign to see that. As a young player who got time last year and just fell off with the consistency at the end, you want to see him come back stronger, and he's a talented player. And Michael Tarquin's a veteran player as well. Brings a great deal of experience to that right tackle, but USC needs to find the best player available for that spot to protect what Justin Dedich called Houdini back there and Caleb Williams, because he can't disappear all the time. You got to protect him.
I really appreciate Coach Henson, too, always keeping it real. He'll tell you the position battles, what he's thinking. Really informative interview. He also talked about Jonah Monheim. Every staff in America would love to have a Jonah Monheim, a guy who can seamlessly transition from right tackle to left tackle, who projects as a guard at the next level. This guy can do everything. And today we asked Coach Henson what's it been like, that transition for Monheim, and he said he's consistent. It's the same thing that we saw at right tackle. He's continuing to look really good, and I expect the left tackle spot to be one of USC's strengths this season because of Monheim.
Right. Monheim has been the stalwart for them, and arguably, maybe not arguably, their best offensive lineman. You know, he's a guy who is an all Pac-12 caliber guy. You know, Pro Football Focus is very high on him, ranks him as one of the top returning offensive tackles in the nation. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Elijah Vera Tucker when he was, you know, kind of a guard. It was clear that he was their best offensive lineman. Need to put him at left tackle because put your best guy out there and protect Houdini. So having Jonah Monheim there, you know, I think it takes a lot of ease off USC fans knowing that they have a veteran, experienced, talented guy like Monheim protecting Caleb Williams' blindside.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting from today. Let's go to Kiel McDonald. He talked about pass blocking from some of the running backs. What did you learn from him?
I just want to say I love Coach Mack, but a lot of coach speak today. You know, when you asked him, you know, how's the running back competition going? He's like, still competition. They're going to keep going. So it was a lot of that, but we did get some nuggets from him. I did ask him about, you know, the scrimmage over this past weekend, how he felt that it went for the running backs. He said, you know, we have some guys who can go a long way, make some big plays. He also kind of threw in there that he was happy with the blitz pickup, which is specifically, with the young guys, Marion Peterson, Quinn Joyner. So it's nice that those younger guys are picking up on the blitzing, you know, because pass protection, that's going to be their ticket to the field. No blocky, no rocky, as Travis Dye coined last season. So that's good to hear that they're still progressing in that area. And then I also asked him about special teams, because Coach Mack is the guy we see working with the returners all in the first half of practice or the beginning of practice. So I just asked him, hey, what do you feel? He's like, he's very excited about those guys. He knows, and he mentioned that last year they did not get it done in the return game. It wasn't what they wanted it to be. So this year they got a lot of exciting players back there. Zachariah Branch, Damani Jackson, Dorian Singer, Raleek Brown, a lot of options to choose from. And he kind of said that he's looking for a guy who can have that vision, you know, can be consistent, and he thinks they're going to rotate some guys in there. So it's not just going to be one guy.
Two more things I want to hit on. I talked to Dorian Singer. I asked him my famous question, who has stood out to you from camp? Who's been a breakout player that you expect to have a big fall? And he mentioned Zachariah Branch. That's been a familiar theme. I'd say Tackett Curtis is the most popular answer on both sides of the ball when I ask players that question. And then Zachariah Branch is right there as well. Just a guy who has a lot of momentum, it looks like, going into the season in a really talented receiver room. He might return some punts. He's a guy USC really wants to get on the field, and I expect him to have a big role right away.
He can do it all. Return punts, play in the slot, play outside, take a little bubble screen all the way, go 60 yards down the field, drive the team bus, whatever you need. He'll do it. So, yeah, Zachariah Branch is a guy, and a lot of fans are excited to see him week 0 against San Jose State. And we learned that Zachariah Branch wants to be called Zachariah Branch, not Zach Branch. So that is the last time you're going to hear us say that. It's Zachariah Branch, and I mean that for all the fans too. Use Zachariah Branch when you're on social media, when you're yelling us on the message board. Zachariah Branch.
Okay, last thing. It's mock game week, as Lincoln Riley has said. Today is Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday?
It is Wednesday. I can confirm it is Wednesday with my sources.
Can you take us through the rest of the week for this team? What does a mock game week look like?
Yeah, so usually they will have early in the week is kind of their full practice. They were in shells today. Thursday will be another practice. Friday will be kind of a walkthrough kind of deal. Typically in the past, they will have kind of their scrimmage. This was the past staff, but they will go to a hotel, act like it's a game week, go to the Coliseum, do all that, kind of get in the motion of things. So that's kind of what we're going to go through the rest of the week. And then come Monday, we're at it. Going to start talking about San Jose State. Going to start giving game predictions. Going to start projecting depth charts. Going to have our team captains for next year or for this season. So a lot is going to come next week for the actual game week. Let's throw away the mock. It's game week, baby.
It's here. Football is just about here. So exciting. He's Chris Trevino. I'm Connor Morrissette. This has been Instant Analysis.